have been working out for various teams in Las Vegas Summer League. Several of these players, like Dion Waiters, Harry Giles, who's on screen right now, are guys that have been out of the league the last few years and are trying to show, like, hey, I can be a guy that can come in, provide some quality minutes, do multiple things, and really help out a roster. And so Harry Giles is a guy that, again, been working out, 6'11", 240 pounds, a really hyped prospect coming out of Duke to come into the NBA, but he hasn't played since the 2020-2021 season when he played for the Portland Trail Blazers, drafted by the Sacramento Kings, in which he played 58 games year one, 46 games year two, and then the last year in which he played with Portland, he played 38 games. He averaged about 14 minutes a game with the Sacramento Kings, and then with the Portland Trail Blazers, he averaged about 9 points per game. Stats-wise, nothing that really jumps out at you. He is still relatively young. He's 25 years old, so there is some talent there. He is a young, still most likely very raw type of prospect and center, but he is a pretty solid body, has good size and like instincts. Like this was a guy that was really hyped coming to the league, and many thought could potentially be a starting level or at worst rotation level center power forward. He shot with the Portland Trail Blazers, very small sample size, but he did shoot 35% from three. Outside of that, his years with Sacramento didn't really shoot the three ball, but he was a 51% EFG type player, and then shot about 55% from 2-point range, 56%. So again, nothing that really jumps out. Very likely would be a project type player that would come in, provide some quality minutes, things like that. The Los Angeles Lakers, however, are a team that wants a center and are looking for young centers, looking for versatile centers, looking for guys that can maybe come in and make an impact. But the pool for centers is really shallow right now, right? Obviously, Christian Wood would be the ideal situation because of just his abilities and talent. Although he is undersized for like the center position, he's capable of playing it, but he's more of a power forward than a center, where a guy like Harry would be better at the center position. Then you have, the vets that are out there. There's talks about Dwight Howard potentially wanting to come back to the Lakers. There's talks about, maybe DeMarcus Cousins. The Lakers look at him, kind of get a veteran, big type guy. Rob Pelinka has talked about how they really want to bring in another quality center that gives them different looks outside of Jackson Hayes, right? Like they want to kind of go back to that 2020 model where they have several centers, they're running multiple bigs, they have AD at the 4. Yes, he can play 5 at times, but put him in position to play the 4 so he's not wearing and tearing down on his body so much, things like that, right? So a guy like Harry Giles coming in, I'm not huge on it. It's not something that I'm like, let's go. I would rather go with like a Colin Castleton and bring him in. I think that, I think he has better upside. He's younger. I think he has a potential. He's shown some really great flashes in Summer League, but it also depends on how Harry's looking in tryouts, right? I mean, he's right now actively, in the process of trying to find a home, finding a roster. It doesn't mean that he will, right? But if he shows those flashes, he is a guy that has NBA experience. He is a guy that has played and been in roles for the Kings and the Blazers. He has pretty much primarily been a backup role, but he did in 2019-2020. He did start 17 games. He showed some flashes, but very, very raw, right? Like, he's not a guy that I expect to come in and provide any type of like, this is the guy we've been looking for, right? This is the guy that's just taking the league by storm, so to speak, right? I think he's the guy that come in, gives you a young, hyped prospect that many people thought was going to be something that was going to have an impact in this league. You bring him in on like a non-guaranteed deal. And I mean, you could still bring in, a Colin Castleton, right? Because the Lakers do have 2 roster spots. So you could still bring Colin in, although it is possible that they might keep him on the 2-way, but that way they can kind of keep him back and forth. And now if you fill all 15 spots, you can get three 2-way players. So the Lakers might go that route. They're looking for a veteran big. So maybe they do bring in like a Bismack Biyombo or a DeMarcus Cousins or a Dwight Howard or something like that, and then bring in that other project in a Harry Giles who they can look at and go, okay, well, we have Jackson Hayes. He's a bit of a work in progress as well, but we only have him for so long. Kind of gives us like that other big to develop. He doesn't really have to start, doesn't really have to play a lot of minutes. He was a guy that had a lot of potential and a guy that could make an impact if you can kind of get him to his potential. The Lakers just development department and everything, Phil Handy, you put him with him. I really think that they can kind of draw out some of that talent. How much, right? Does he become a third big, right, for the rest of his career, or is he able to work into like a bench role as your backup big? Like, that would be ideal. I mean, in a perfect world, he comes in and you develop him into a starting level center, but he's already 25, so it's like how long do you have to really kind of get him in position for that? But you never know. I mean, if he's willing to put in the work, you'd be surprised how much people change when they go from like being hyped draft prospect that has all the potential in the world to all of a sudden you're out the league and it's like, now what, right? So I don't hate the idea of bringing him in. I'd rather go the route of getting a veteran-led center and then bringing in Colin Castleton personally, right? Like, go get a DeMarcus Cousins. I'm still in the Hassan Whiteside camp. I still really like the Hassan Whiteside camp. But based on what Rob Pelinka said, kind of sounds like if it's not Christian Wood, DeMarcus Cousins kind of fits that mold, right? And he's slimmed down. He's looked good. So do they kind of bring him in and have them have a workout? I would imagine that Harry worked out for the Lakers, right? Because, I mean, the Lakers are actively right now in the process of trying to find a big man. So I don't believe that the Lakers have left any stones unturned, so to speak, right? I'm sure the Lakers have looked into Harry Giles and everybody else that they can look into, because it doesn't hurt. You sit there, you watch him work out for an hour, do your due diligence. What if he's great? What if he's developed a three-point shot? You know, what if he's maintained some level of like, oh, wow, like we can see the potential, right? I mean, the Lakers draft and scouting department, I mean, they find gems after gems after gems. And this guy was a first-round draft pick in 2017. I mean, he wasn't like top 5 or anything like that. He was what was he, 20th? I think he was the 20th pick in the draft. So you're talking about a guy that like was late. But he was a guy that many people thought was going to be a real player in this league. That many people thought, like, this is a guy that could have a real impact on this roster. And he just unfortunately didn't. I mean, 2017 had a lot of misses, though. I mean, even guys like Josh Jackson was in that draft, right? And he was like the 4th pick. So I just, outside of like Jason Tatum and stuff, like this draft wasn't like littered with talent. If I remember correctly. But not a huge fan of it, but I think it's at least worth the conversation. I think it's at least worth talking about. And so, as always, I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think, like, yeah, why not give them a look? Do you trust the scouting department? Like, maybe they did a look. If they bring them in, then obviously they see something. Do you think, no, stay away from them? Bring in, like, a Colin Castleton, or bring in a Biyombo or whatever. Like I said, you could do both. You know, like let's say Christian Wood tomorrow does sign up, right? And he's like, hey, you know, I'm coming to Lakers on a minimum. Cool, perfect. That doesn't mean you can't bring in Harry Giles and let him try to develop and kind of have him as like another development big. You can't have too many bigs. And if he can develop into something, you know, it could be a low risk, high reward, right? You bring him in on a non-guaranteed deal. You let him get some burn. You let him get some run. You know, the Lakers have plenty of just development guys at pretty much every position except for center, right? I mean, you have Jackson Hayes. Hopefully, you can keep him long term. That's the idea. You got him on a minimum, right? So, is he willing to sign a multi-year deal and allow the Lakers to develop him properly and turn him into like maybe our starting center of the future? If so, that would be great, then maybe you don't really need Harry because you got Colin Castleton as like your backup, or maybe Castleton is the backup, and you have Hayes as the or reverse that, Hayes is the backup, and then Castleton as the starter, and then but even then, I mean, still doesn't hurt to have a third big, especially if you can like develop him in like a floor spacer, right? Right, like if he can start knocking down some threes, because like I said, he did shoot 35%, but small sample size, but still, you never know. But however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know down in the comment section.